Okay, hello, good evening, welcome to Stanion and Northants Astronomy Club's May 2021 Skyguide, where I will once again run through all the major highlights of the UK skies this month, and I will also include some member images and a couple of news items at the end. So I'll crack straight on as usual, and I will start off with Mercury. So Mercury is going to be visible all month long in the evening sky. So at the start of May it's shining at mag -1, and then by the end of the month it reaches mag +2.2, so it is dimming over the month, but its position means that it is visible for a good while after sunset. So you just have to look in the west-northwest to see Mercury, and on the 4th of May it is going to be very close to the Pleiades star cluster, which might be a difficult spot. You'll see Mercury alright, but you might not be able to see the Pleiades quite so well in the evening twilight. And then also it is also close to a thin crescent moon on the 13th of May. The moon will be hanging just below the inner planet, which will make quite a nice challenging spot as well, because the moon will be quite a thin crescent. And then on the 28th of May, end of the month, Venus is going to be only 32 arc minutes away from Venus, so it will be very close to Mercury, and these two inner planets should be visible in the same field of view in a maybe a 25mm eyepiece on a telescope. I remember last year I think I fitted them both in the same field of view on my telescope, so yeah, it's a pretty cool thing to see. Now moving on to Venus as well. It's also all month long in the west-northwest, and you'll be able to see this planet after sunset. It's a bit lower down than Mercury is, but it is brighter. It's shining at mag -3.8 all month, and on the 12th it has a 1% crescent moon very close by, so even thinner than the one that's going to appear near Mercury. So this will be a bit more of a challenging spot, but it looks really nice if you can make it out with a pair of binoculars, or a camera, or your telescope even. So, yeah, moving on now. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is from last year. So I mentioned about Mercury is coming close to the Pleiades this year. Last year Venus did the same sort of thing. So I set up a scope in my front garden. My daughters joined me as well, and we managed to get a view of Venus as it got very close to the Pleiades. It was just about nestled inside the star cluster actually, and I managed to get an image here as well. I think I took this with a 250mm lens on my DSLR camera. It came out quite well. I think the sky was darker at that point because I think Venus was higher in the sky, and so as twilight faded away, I was managed to get a fairly good image of the star cluster and bright planet Venus, and hopefully we'll get the same this year. So moving on now to Mars, it's shining away at mag +1.7. It's visible in the west-northwest after darkness, and it's going to become more difficult to see by month end as it's losing ground to the increasing length of days. So but it's still visible in the west after darkness falls. It's currently in Gemini, and it's going to be making its way north through that constellation throughout the month. But if you do want to get a good view of Mars still, maybe the first half of May will be the best time to see it. Moving on to Jupiter, so mag -2. This is a morning object in the east-southeast before sunrise. You'll be able to see the gas giant rising in the morning sky, and I've picked out one particular date here for Jupiter on the 20th of May. This is around about 4 in the morning, but the event will start before that, so if you can get a view before this time, you'll be able to see the shadow of the moon Io being projected onto the planet, and also Io itself as well will be on the planet's disk. So if you view this maybe an hour beforehand, maybe 3 in the morning, you'll be able to see the moon making its way onto the planet's disk. But it has got a low altitude in our sky at the minute, so the earlier you view it, the lower it will be, so maybe quite a challenge. Well worth a look if you're up in that time in the morning. You've been doing other things, looking at other objects in the night sky. Okay, so moving on now. This is an image that I took a few years ago now. I need to freshen up my images of Jupiter. I haven't took any for quite a while, but this just shows you one of the moons projecting its shadow onto Jupiter's disk, and it's also, you can just make out the great red spot there as well. My image is in black and white because I use an infrared filter, so it only gives me one wavelength of light to play with. So it's not a colour picture, it's just the infrared. And there we go, I've annotated that as well. So I've got Io is actually on the planet's disk as well, so it's in front of the planet as we look at it, and then the shadow of Io, and then that bright speck off to the left is another moon of Jupiter, which is Europa. So Saturn actually rises before Jupiter in the early hours, and so we'll get a bit more altitude than Jupiter. By the time the sunlight starts to starts drowning out all the night sky objects. So Saturn's at plus 0.7 Mo, so a bit dimmer than Jupiter, but you'll still be able to notice it in the southern sky before sunrise. So just look to the southeast in the early hours and you'll be able to make out Saturn as well. And there's an image I also took in infrared a few years ago of Saturn. You can make out its nice rings with photography sometimes, and also a bit of banding on the planet's disk as well. I went onto the inthesky.org, and you can check out what objects are around. I particularly like looking at the comet section on inthesky.org, and you can then bring up a nice little like a projected path of the comet over the month or whatever time frame you choose. So I looked at this one. It's Comet T2 Palomar. I don't think it's not a particularly bright comet. I think it's about magnitude 10. I think that's going to be its brightest. I think it's going to be its brightest during June. But it's well worth a little look. You never know what's going to happen with comets. They might have an outburst. Particularly with photography, you can pick out some colour, and then if you take quite a few images over an hour or two, you can make out the movement of the comet against the night sky. And this particular comet is going to make quite a close approach to the globular star cluster M3, which lies between the constellation Bootes and Coma Berenices. So it'd be a good opportunity to have a little look and see if you can make out this comet, or at least get some images of the comet. Is an example of one that I took a few years ago. As you can see, the object there moving against the background of stars is a comet. I can't remember which one it is. This was taken over about an hour and a half, 2 hours, so you can make out the movement of the comet over that sort of time frame in the night sky. Because the comet is within the solar system and all those stars are very far away, they won't appear to move to us, but the comet will, even over an hour or two. You can still make a nice little animation like this. And on globular clusters, I'm going to highlight some deep sky objects this month, and I'm making out these 4 globular clusters, which are these will be rising in the east. As it's dark, around about 11 o'clock-ish, gone 11 now, throughout May, so we're days are getting longer, nights are getting shorter, so if you want to get some observing in now, it's best to get it in now before we lose the all the total astronomical darkness, for the summer. Still doesn't stop us doing, astronomy, but you can make things out much easier when you have got astronomical darkness. So there's 4 globular clusters in the eastern sky as darkness falls during May. We've got M3, M5, M13 and M92 in these positions as I've highlighted here. There's 2 in Hercules, there's 1 just on the border of Boots there as well, and this one down here, M5. And here's a couple of images of some of the clusters that I've just mentioned there. So M13, the Great Globular Cluster of Hercules, there top left, and M3, which is the globular cluster I mentioned before, which is where that comet Palomar is going to be making a close pass by later on this month. As you can see, they're quite nice objects to observe. You can sometimes make out different colour stars in them, and they do look like quite a diffuse object through the eyepiece when you observe them visually. But then once you get your camera on them as well, you can start making out individual stars. Just imagine that I think there is supposed to be hundreds of thousands of stars all sort of gravitationally bound to each other within these objects. So they're quite interesting things to learn about as well. You can look them up as you observe them. And another object here I'm going to highlight this month is M87, which is a large elliptical galaxy in the constellation of Virgo. It's amidst the realm of galaxies, as it's known, just off the back end of Leo there. I've highlighted this one as it was made quite famous last year when the Event Horizon Telescope took a picture of a black hole for the first time, and it was within the black hole which resides at the centre of this galaxy here. And if you just see this image here down bottom right, it's the image by Joseph Stafford, and see that little jet coming off the side there? That is an actual jet that's just being ejected by that massive black hole at the centre of M87. And recently that first ever image has been overlaid now with some magnetic field flow lines, which the people running the Event Horizon Telescope project have managed to come up with and show us how the magnetic flow lines actually are flowing around this black hole. And they can't quite explain it properly yet still, but I think it goes a little bit of the way towards explaining why that big jet of material gets ejected from the black hole. So not all material does get sucked into a black hole. A lot of it, especially with a supermassive one like this, does actually get redirected and blasted back out into space. So that was a pretty interesting bit of news last month. Okay, moving on now to the ISS. There's plenty of visible passes in the early hours and also in the late evenings this month. I think just about every day this month has got an ISS pass either in the early hours or in the late evening. So as you can see here, we've got some about 1 o'clock in the morning. There's another one there at 25 past 10 in the evening. There's one up there at 4 in the morning. So plenty of opportunities this month to see the ISS passing over. And as always, I recommend using the ISS detector app on your smartphone, or have a look at heavensabove.com for all these latest times. And staying on the ISS subject, there was the second SpaceX Dragon crew launched up to the International Space Station. They used a second-hand booster, so the booster's already made a trip into space and they've reconditioned it and it's been used again. So that's the first time that's happened. And also for the first time there was 11 people aboard the ISS for a good few days before the crew one Dragon Crew 1 splashed down in the sea after the end of their mission. So it was a bit crowded up there for a little while. I'm not sure where they all slept, but I'm sure it's pretty cosy on the space station for a few days before that first crew made their descent back down to Earth. So that's it for the ISS, and move on now to some member images. Paul Smith's been pretty busy during April with quite a few images to go through here. So this one is one of the Leo triplet galaxies, NGC 3628, also known as the Hamburger Galaxy. You can see that, it looks like a nice bun with a quarter pounder stuck in the middle there. A very nice image there from Paul. Another one from Paul here is M101, the Pinwheel Galaxy. This one's situated up in, I think it's up in Ursa Major, this galaxy. So you can make out some really nice spiral structure there in this image. Those arms, twisting their way around, the centre of the galaxy. And also got M108, which is, I think it's known as the Surfboard Galaxy due to its shape. It's like a very sort of bit of an angle that we're looking at this galaxy in, so it gives it that sort of elongated shape, and hence its name, Surfboard Galaxy. And also this one is nearby the Surfboard Galaxy. This is M97, the Owl Nebula. You can just make out sort of why it's called the Owl Nebula. Looks like a nice round face there with a couple of eyes. Got the big eyes staring back at us from deep space. So that's a pretty cool little nebula. I think if you've got a wide enough field of view with your camera and telescope setup, you can just about squeeze those two objects in the same field of view as well. So yeah, Paul used his observatory. He's got like a slide off roof observatory, and uses a Ritchie Cheptune a 200mm telescope at around about f8 to take these images with, along with a DSLR camera as well. So yeah, pretty neat work there from Paul. And one more image here from Paul is an image of the moon, which he actually used. This was a 6-inch Newtonian scope to take this image with, and it was mounted on a reconditioned EQ3 mount, which he didn't want to throw away. It was all rusted and not working very well at all, so he took it apart, reconditioned it, got it working nice and smoothly. And as you can see from this image here, it must have had nice smooth gears on it to get a really crisp image of the moon like this. So yeah, well done there, Paul. And moving on now to Graham Algeo. He was also out last month. Got a similar telescope set up there. It's got a Newtonian on top of an EQ mount. He took a picture of the moon. He's applied quite a lot of processing to this image. As you can see, there's a lot of different colours visible there on the moon, which sort of denotes the different minerals in the structure of the regolith on the lunar surface. So they're always nice to see. It's quite a fun process as well to bring out those colours in your own image, using something like Photoshop or Affinity Photo. It's a really cool thing to do. And also Graham, he imaged this pair of galaxies which are in Ursa Major. This is M82 there on the left and M81 on the right, also known as Bode's Nebula. And also the one on the left is sometimes known as the Cigar Galaxy. Yeah, so it's got some really cool things going on there in this image. It's got the nice spiral structure of M81 visible, and M82 is also a spiral galaxy, but because we're viewing this galaxy edge on, we can just about make out the red hydrogen alpha sort of emissions coming from the top and bottom of this galaxy. It's a really nice thing to image, and also they're quite nice objects to see visually through the eyepiece. You just about make them out in the finder scope, I remember, and then through the eyepiece you can see them both in the same field of view very easily. They're nice objects to see in the winter months and in the early sort of spring, summer months too. So moving on to my last bit of news now for this sort of Skyguide. I'm going back to Mars Ingenuity, which is the helicopter which was stowed away underneath the Mars Perseverance rover. So as you all may be aware, it's now made quite a few flights. I think it's made 4 flights to date. it's been taking off, hovering, taking images, and landing again. The flights don't last that long, about a minute or so, but each flight is getting a massive amount of data for the scientists at NASA, so they can get ready to make the next helicopter mission to go to Mars, so it can be even better for doing like more exploration of the red planet. So this bottom image here, you can see the rotors there spinning, and the top image shows us an image from Ingenuity itself. It took a picture of the surface whilst it was in the air, and it spotted the rover there, the Perseverance rover on the left hand side of this image, and on the right hand side is where the rover made touchdown, so you can see that's the sort of distance that it's made so far as it's driving around the Martian surface. And then this image here, which I'll leave you with, shows you the helicopter in the air. You can just make it out just off center at the top of the image. That little dot there is the Mars Ingenuity helicopter flying above the Martian surface. So there's some really cool things going on with space exploration at the minute, with the ISS, with being able to launch again from American soil to the ISS, and also now this Mars rover and helicopter, making some real good headway there on the exploration of Mars. So I hope you find the Skyguide useful. Hope you get some clear skies during May, and I will speak to you all again next month. So clear skies. Bye bye.